Yes, I do. I do think that people with a disability should be in leadership roles. It does not make sense for a person who has a impairment or physical disability to go and work on a construction site. But in terms of a management role where the facilities do allow, then yes, I do think that people with disability should be in leadership roles. They shouldn't be confined or restrained from it. I think they should be included as part of society, and given the opportunities to be afforded those positions as well.
Yes, very much so. And I mean, having a disability obviously excludes you from some things, but there is so much that you can still do. There was one of my high school teachers said something that has stuck with me. I don't think he realized how profound it was when he said it. I think he was just making a joke. But he said, you don't asking someone in a wheelchair to get something off the top shelf is not being inclusive. You're just being an ass. And I think that that's there are certain things that as a person with a disability you just can't do, and that is fine. There are things that fully abled people just can't do, but it is about finding what you can do, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and running with that. That's yeah. But yeah, sorry, getting back to disabilities in leadership roles. Who would like to speak next?
Yeah, I think for me it's sort of going around what is a leader, and I think in Lasaka we often talk about this, is that you can be a leader in your area or in your space or in your work environment without being a manager. And I think those are two very clear distinctions. Whether you have a team underneath you that you are directly managing, or you are just an independent contributor, I think you can be a leader in many, many ways. And neither way is better. I can tell you that. you definitely we have managers that are not leaders, and we have leaders that are not managers across all of our businesses, and I think that's a big distinction. And then from the question around should people with disabilities be leaders, 100%. I think anybody that has a physical or mental disability should not be disadvantaged from becoming a leader or a manager. And I think anybody who has the correct skills in their department and in their work environment should get the best opportunities. So in at least from my perspective within Lasaka, the best people for the job, regardless of race, religion, physical or mental disabilities, should be given that opportunity and really strive within the business. And yeah, and I would definitely support that.
Very much so. Well said. Thank you very much. Who'd like to speak next?
I definitely have to agree. I think when I saw that question, I thought, why not? That was my immediate reaction, because I think as long as their capacity is not limited in terms of leading, according to the standards of that role, then there's absolutely nothing that should discredit them in that regard. Because I think, like you said, when you define leadership, the parameters of what leading means, whether it's driving change, whether it's managing people, whether it's implementing stuff, I don't think any physical impairment could stop someone from that. But if it's more mental, then of course, that's something that could be looked into. And I think for every leader that's appointed to lead, they go through a process. There's background checks to it. So they get vetted. So I think if someone's track record, no matter how differently abled they are, has shown that this is something they have experience in, then they do also stand a chance to actually lead. Because I do believe that leaders are born. In fact, I mean, some people don't, but I think leaderships come from within. People could lead in a role that doesn't even require leadership, because leadership is about taking initiative. Leadership is about driving change, being innovative, like this podcast. I mean, I'm new in the company. I don't know if this has happened before, but whoever thought this was a great, amazing idea, kudos to them, because this is great. Conversations like these where people can bring some sort of social impact into the workplace and raise awareness is amazing. So leadership is beyond the title, so to speak. It's not about the title. It's not about how you look. It's not about who society thinks you are, but rather the skills that come from you, and you just following the mandate of what you need to do. And I think anyone can do that, really. Some people are born with it. Some people learn to be leaders through experience and all. But I think everyone, my question is why not? So I think if anyone disagrees, let's discuss, because why not? What would stop a differently abled person from actually becoming a leader?
Yeah, no, that was very well said. Admittedly, this question was a bit of a layup, as it were. I wasn't expecting any no's, to be honest. Well, I would. Yeah, I mean, anyone anti-disabled leadership? Oh, okay. No, I'm kidding, obviously. But no, you're absolutely right. Leadership is way more than your title. It is what you bring to the role, and just your general attitude, and the skills you develop, skills you're born with, and
Yeah. I just also want to add something. I don't know if it's maybe it's a question to the group, but it might be a condescending view, but I almost see someone with a disability who's sort of been able to overcome those challenges to put themselves not on par, but on level with someone else who might be considered for a leadership or a managerial role. I see it as more respectful. They've gone above and beyond what's required of them so that they can get to a level that they're comfortable with, where they see themselves at the same level as their colleagues. It might be this strange view because I don't see it from their perspective. I only see it from my perspective. But yeah, I generally have more respect for someone who's able to do that.
No, that is a fantastic point. I don't think you're wrong, frankly. There are, very small things in my life, with my visual impairment, and obviously you're similar. That's
And I've also got a temporary disability I forgot about. Got knee issues, surgery and rehabilitation and all that kind of stuff. So I'm struggling, but I'm getting there.
No, absolutely. And there are just small things in life that people may not think about. I mean, this side is a complete dead zone to me. If someone comes up to me from this side, I don't know that you're here until you're tapping me on the shoulder, And that's not something that you would normally think about. And other people have their own things that we just can't think about because, frankly, why would you? Like, it's not obvious. It's not. It's not something that you would normally consider or really take into consideration because, what we consider normal is someone who can see, who has both eyes, both ears, can smell properly. It's we just assume that people are that by default and go through our lives, but there are some people who are going through it in their own personal way. Wait, I get you the mic.
You used an interesting word called normal people. What is normal people these days?
Able-bodied, able-minded.
Okay. Able-bodied,
Is
able-minded.
anyone
Yeah.
But is anyone normal?
Is anyone normal?
That's the thing.
I mean, what is considered normal has also changed over the years. It is that's a very nebulous term. Maybe I shouldn't use normal, but I think we kind of understand what it means.
Someone who doesn't regard themselves as having a disability, maybe.
There we go.
So,
That speaks to exactly just why I said what is normal these days is because you know what? We are all people, irrespective of how we are designed or shaped or sized or currently looking at the moment. May it be your visual impairment or may it be a person with physical disability or like your knee, whatever. But I think what is important and what we should take away is that when we speak about respect, we respect the human part of that individual, and that is respectfully appreciating who they are. Because as much as what a normal person, and I'm saying this like in air quotes, is that we still have to have respect for one another. And the important part of when we look at disability is the fact that, again, it is just a person. So we need to be mindful of that situation. We need to be respectful. We need to be humble enough. We don't know what it is that they are going through. We can't experience it. We can't feel it. It's not something that we can relate to because we're not in that situation. And we don't have the level of understanding as to how dangerously they feel or what they are going through in that moment. So in terms of just going back to the leadership part, yes, definitely. I advocate for it. I believe that it should be looked at in more companies, not just us and taking this initiative now, but should be a lot more mindful of that aspect in terms of it.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And I think it's almost interesting because I think we are preaching to the converted. Is everybody sitting around this table and potentially even within Lasaka is on the same page, hopefully, and agrees, and we're striving to do better. But I'm sure Shay can agree is that the reason he has a job and a business is the fact that not everyone in South Africa sees that the same way and has the same opportunities, whether you're disabled or not. And so it'd be interesting from Shay's point of view is like, yes, Lasaka might be striving to do more and better, but are others?
Yeah, for sure. I'll take that. Yeah. Thanks for that. I agree. I think there's so many barriers, and just to add in to what you said, the organizations and companies out there, there's still a long way to go. But thankfully, individuals with disabilities are protected by law, and we know that there's no discrimination when we're thinking of leadership or promotion. I think we're more focused on, is someone able to lead, than actually thinking, how does the person actually get there? If you've gotten to a point where either you're appointed as a manager or you've worked your way to a position where you are being considered, one of the things that shouldn't happen is, okay, this person has a visual disability, he can't be a manager. And of course, that's a very nasty way to look at something. It's discrimination, and really so many things that one has to think about. But thankfully, again, people with disabilities are really protected in this country.
Yeah.
I have a fear, right? I have a fear. I mean, Kazang's doing it, we just heard, but I have a fear if most companies within the workspace end up wanting to sort of include differently abled persons just to tick the books and say that we've done it. We have 2 employees, we have 3 employees, which we've gotten from platforms such as this, just to tick the books and say that we've done it. We are part of the conversation, we're part of the change. But are people really, because the moment, and it goes back to what you were saying, the moment we're able to say there's normal and the other, then that means we are actually looking at it and acknowledging it, but subtly, basically subtly making it a point. When I think your point is, can we not get to a point where we don't really highlight it, where it just becomes a part of the growth? So if there's vacancies and a differently abled person applies, it's just another candidate. And now HR doesn't have to say, well, we have 5 normal candidates and we have 2 differently abled candidates. So let's take 1 from each just to accommodate the vision of having more differently abled people in the workspace. So I have a fear. Basically, my fear is within how genuine are companies accommodating and including differently abled persons, because clearly it's something that people would like to be a part of. But is it because we want to say we've done it, we are doing it, or do they really understand and empathize with these issues that these people are actually facing? Because at the end of the day, if it's just to highlight the requirements or the vision that the company has or the goals that they have, then we're essentially saying, come join us because we want you to be here, but we're making it obvious that we are aware of it, which might not be a bad thing, because it's good to be intentional, right? If we have a goal to accommodate 5 differently abled persons until maybe June 2025, great, but let's not make it about the number or just them being there, but just as a part of the team, and acknowledging that yes, they are differently abled, but let's not make it obvious. Let's not make it a numbers thing or a checklist thing. How genuine are companies? And this is not to Kazang, because clearly I think we're doing fine. But how genuine is it when it comes to driving this inclusivity?
I think for me, and I think the HR team probably has a better view of this, is until the status quo changes in society, you will have to be intentional about it. And I think rather being intentional and giving equal candidates opportunities is the right intention. And until such time as 10, 20, 30 years down the line when we don't have to make that distinction is a great place to be. But for the time being, maybe again, Lasaka and Kazang is on the progressive side and a lot of other entities across South Africa are not. And I think for the short term, making that intention to say, well, if there are equal candidates, can we in some ways preference one over the other? Maybe we should for the time being. In 10, 20, 30 years, hopefully we don't have to make that distinction is a good place to be.
I firstly have to commend you on your thinking and coming out and just saying those things that many people think and feel. And I think from my perspective, and we're very encouraged that businesses are investing in initiatives that include disability. And I think we can just say it that companies are incentivized to include these initiatives in relation to the scorecards, etc. And I think just to say it out loud that it starts there. So even if a company initially that was their motivation to include these programs or individuals in positions, I think it evolves from there. Yeah. And I think once again, that inclusivity becomes so much more where hopefully, as you've said, within 10, 20, 30 years, that isn't an issue anymore. We have a long way to go, and it has to start somewhere. Very exciting times.
Yeah, that was a fantastic point. And I do think it comes down to, as I mentioned before, empathy and what you were saying, the dangers of, I think, tokenization of having, just that person to tick the box. That's very much not the way to go, and it's also, I think, very obvious when that is happening. I personally, you can kind of feel it. Maybe that's just me, speaking for myself here, but yeah, there is a genuine feeling when someone is being inclusive because you can feel a level of empathy from them, and as opposed to, okay, we need this many people on the team that tick this box versus this team. And hopefully in the future we can get to a point where, there are no more boxes. That's I think what we're all hoping for. And I think conversations like this is how we get there. Slowly but surely. This is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years of these kinds of chats, both in this room and outside. But we will get there eventually. I truly do believe that.